Hello again. Thank you for joining me, Kevin Lentz, the pastor here of Trinity at Badger Ranch, for our devotions. I pray you've been enjoying them this past week with maybe the sermon recap on Monday, and then, of course, Ian's and Alyssa's on Tuesday and Wednesday. They do such a great job. I'm going to continue with my Thursday study now on the first book of 1 Corinthians. We've gone through the first 6 chapters, so today we're going to look at chapter 7. Now, it's quite a long chapter, so I'm not going to look at a whole lot of it. And it's also on a topic about marriage. He talks about being a husband, about being a wife, about virgins, divorce. He talks about a lot of things that are very applicable to life in our society today. He does a good job of it as well. So we're very thankful that St. Paul addresses this very human, very personal issue with what he does. He makes it very clear that he wasn't married when he wrote this book, and I don't think that he was married even later in life when he was a missionary. So we give thanks for his point of view from a single man, and also as a godly man, what he shares as well. I do want to share 2 verses with you that I think are important in this chapter. And they're 1 Corinthians 7, verses 3 and 4. And they read, "The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife's body does not belong to her alone, but also to her husband. In the same way, the husband's body does not belong to him alone, but also to his wife." Now, I look at those verses when I take couples through premarital counseling, because it's very clear there in scriptures that God talks about intimacy and maleness and femaleness and what that's all about. And he makes it very clear that it's a very much an equal understanding. The wife treats the husband equally as the husband treats the wife. And we give thanks for that, St. Paul talking about that. And here he says that when you're married, yes, you are yourself. You are who you have always been, but you also belong to your spouse. Wives to their husbands, husbands to their wives. And we're talking emotionally and physically and things along those kinds of lines for how we can share ourselves with whoever our spouse is, for whom we give thanks to God for. Because God is behind the gift of marriage. We remember it was in the Garden of Eden, before there was even sin in the world, and Adam and Eve had no needs because things were perfect with them, that God gave them to each other. Caused Adam to fall into a sleep, takes one of his ribs, makes Eve out of him, and brings her to him. And so we give thanks for how God instituted marriage for society. Still today, what God put in place back at the beginning is still very much what we follow. So these 2 verses make it very clear that what God put in place at the beginning is still in place. Yes, you belong to yourself. You are your own person. But should you marry, you also belong to each other, because you are God's gift to your spouse, and we give thanks for that. Again, the chapter goes on, 40 verses. It's quite a long chapter. I invite you to read it. Things that apply still today to our society that you'll find along the way. But again, it talks about important things about what a good husband is about, what a good wife is about, as far as being godly spouses, and what a blessing that is. So thanks for joining me here today, and we'll pick up again next week with 1 Corinthians chapter 8. And God bless your day, and we'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.